Good morning.
Good morning. I feel that way too.
Thanks for reminding me.
She was quick. Soncee, you were a drum major of your high school band?
Yes, I was.
And what did you gain from that experience?
I gained learning how to deal with a very different personalities in different situations. I was in charge of a marching band of close to 300 people, and my most difficult section was the drum line and the trumpet lines, of course, because I think that they were very aggressive personalities. It taught me a lot of self-discipline. I was at the school an hour before everybody else usually. I taught a summer band camp during June, that entire month for the freshmen, and then during August for the rest of the band. So it taught me a lot about self-discipline and prioritizing my time and dealing with personalities.
Soncee, what kind of broadcast manager would you be?
I think that probably one of my colleagues summed it up the best just a little while before I left. He said, it was right in the middle, and you'll relate to this, I'm sure, it was right in the middle of one of those breaking news stories when everything that you had planned for that day just got thrown out the window and you have to start over from scratch. And he said, he told me that I had grace under pressure, and he said that that was a quality that you needed not only in this business but in life. So I think that I would be the kind of manager that would try to take everything in stride, try to remember that people have lives outside of the newsroom as well, and try to keep that grace under pressure in the heat of the moment.
How can we discourage the media from, I know we have to tell what's going on in the world and all the bad things, but how can we encourage them to give more stories to these young people who are doing such a great job with their lives, because they are out there?
That's true. In fact, at our station, we have a special segment called KY3 for Kids, in which we try to highlight children that have done positive things for their communities. I think that it just needs to come from a groundswell of support for more positive role models for students and more positive role models for their parents as well.
You stress volunteerism,
Right.
and in our society, especially in inner cities where we could use volunteers the most,
Right.
there seems to be still an attitude of, I don't want to be involved, I don't want to be involved.
Right.
How do you encourage these people and get them excited about volunteering?
Well, 58% of Americans want to volunteer. In a recent poll, they found they want to volunteer, but they don't feel like they have a leader. They want to volunteer, but they don't want to be the one that has to be in charge of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way to encourage them is show them where we can plug them in to already established programs with leaders already in position, and that they would just have to go in and fulfill. Maybe it's just 3 hours a week. Maybe it's just 2 or 3 hours a month, but still they're going to meet a need.
You mentioned resources to meet the needs of children. What do you
Right.
think the needs of children are?
I think that probably the biggest need for children right now is consistency. I think they need consistency in their family life, in their education. I think they need consistency in love, and I think they need consistency in their role models. Children are getting so many mixed messages, not only from the media, but they're getting mixed messages from their families these days because they're torn and they're pulled. And so I think the biggest need right now is consistency. We also have very basic needs. There are a lot of children out there that are going to go to bed hungry tonight, and those children need food. There are a lot of children that are going to go to school next week with shoes that probably were handed down 2 or 3 times before they got to them that have holes in the feet of their shoes. I think that we need to meet those basic needs, and we need to do that by businesses supporting where they can't give all of their time. They can give resources and money to help them.
As Miss America, what will you do to reduce a child's TV time and improve the quality of TV?
Well, as someone who's been in the TV business, I think that I already have credibility speaking from the side of, it's kind of odd when you hear someone that is in TV saying, you shouldn't watch so much TV. But I think that children follow examples that are set for them. I think we need to encourage parents to interact with their children more. The average parent spends about 15 minutes talking to their child a day. That just isn't enough time. I was raised where my parents talked to me a lot. We had lots of conversations, and that helped me as I was growing up. So I would not only encourage the children not to watch, but encourage the parents to turn off the TV. And I was angry with my mother more than once for turning off my television during a program, but it was necessary, and it helped me in the long run.
There's a phrase, if it feels good, do it. A lot of people feel that way, a lot of young people.
That's right.
How can we encourage them to take responsibility for their actions?
I think we need to show them the consequences of their actions. AIDS education is certainly trying to do that, trying to show them the consequences of unsafe sex. I think that we just need to show them the consequences more and make them realize that you can't just abuse your bodies, you can't just abuse others and not pay for it, because what goes around comes around, and you'll eventually pay for it in the end.
Television programming seems to avoid the issue of AIDS, so how can we get more educational programs about the epidemic on?
Well, I'm not sure that the answer is necessarily bringing the AIDS into the situation of a television sitcom or something like that, or a television drama. I'm not sure that that's the arena where we need to deal with it. I think it's a much more serious topic. I think that we need to deal with it on the platform of more documentary type programming, which does not get high ratings, as we all know. But if we can do it in smaller amounts and not try to just flood people with information, I think it'll be more effective.
If you could return to Springfield and you'd have $100,000 to distribute to your community, to its needs, how would you divide that money?
The first thing I would do is, and I'm sure you read about my story about the 4 children that I was involved with and still involved with in the Big Brother Big Sister program. I've said all along that those children, those girls have no hope for a college education. They have no future. And the first thing I would do would be set aside. I'm not sure exactly how I would do it, but I know that I would set it aside for them in some way, something that would grow for them and something that only they could get to when they turned a certain age for their college education. That's one of the first things that I would do. And then I also strongly believe in giving to your local church. I think that the church can meet many needs when it comes to the community, so I would give some back to my church. And then there are other projects in Springfield, the Springfield Children's Home, and there are some other things that need fixing. You know, there are broken faucets, there are basic things that need help, and I think I would try to do that.
Soncee, as I listen to you and look at you, I wonder, why broadcast management? Why not on camera?
I asked myself the same question. I got on a fast track to management. I think it was just being in the right place at the right time. I was very fortunate because I don't know of anyone else who was out of college just a year and had a position like that already. There were I was supervising people that had been in the business a lot longer than I had, 10 and 12 years. And so I think it was just being in the right place at the right time, being very diligent, having a strong work ethic. I do want a career on camera at some point, but that just wasn't the right time. I had to fill the spot where we needed the...
Did you feel resentment from those people who had been in the business longer, and then all of a sudden a woman is in
I'll tell you, no, I didn't feel resentment from the people that had been in it the longest, because they respected me, they supported me, and they tried to help me. You know, when I had problems, I sought out their counsel, and I asked for their wisdom on certain situations. The places where I felt resentment were probably the people that had been there just a little bit longer than I had, but weren't quite in my position yet. So that was where it came from. But that's life. That's something you have to deal with.
We tend to put Miss America on a pedestal.
Right.
Is it wrong for us to idealistically expect her to be this perfect person, or should she try to be that?
No one is perfect, and certainly Miss America is not perfect. Miss America should be a role model. I think that's an obvious given. I think that Miss America should be someone that little children can go and hug and get dirty, and she can get down and crawl around on the floor and try to teach them things about self-esteem and try to teach them how special they are. I don't think that we should put her on a pedestal and say that this woman has all of the answers, because she doesn't. But this woman is intelligent, and she can speak to some issues, and she can touch the lives of children.
Going to your music, you've had 13 years of piano. What kind of piano study have you had? Has it all been classical, or?
No, the majority of it had been classical. A good part of it was taught through the church, through 2 piano teachers that were with my church. And I for a long time, I wanted to be the type of pianist that could sit down and just play by ear and play anything that was put in front of her at church, just church choruses and things like that. So a good part of it was classical, but also I had a mixture.
Are you personally satisfied with the results of the Gulf War?
Personally, I am. I think that as far as bringing America together and bringing back national pride, I think that was successful. I'm not sure that we did everything we could. I think that it's still evident that there are things that need to be done. So I think we need to make sure that we complete our task there.
What do you feel are the obstacles to peace are now in the Middle East region?
I think one of the main obstacles is that we still don't understand all of the factions that are over there. It's still confusing, even to the people that are in the highest intelligence. And I think that that's the main obstacle. We still don't always know who we're dealing with in the Middle East. We still have to be very cautious.
What kind of name is Soncee?
I've been asked that all week. Soncee is an Indian name. The full name is Soncee, and it's a Cherokee Apache name meaning bright morning star. I don't know if any of you saw the Jimmy Stewart movie a few years back called Broken Arrow, and Soncee was Coach, not Jimmy Stewart, she was Coach Sheese's Indian princess daughter. Mom and Dad Ozarked it a little bit and named me Soncee.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's do lunch.
Have a great afternoon. Good morning.
Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning.
How are you feeling this morning?
A little bit tired, but I'm very excited.
That's great. Could you tell me, I'm fascinated, what made you so fascinated with film?
I think it has to do with my musical history. As a child, the music that I was exposed to the most was TV and film music. My parents didn't really play records except for the Supremes and the Four Seasons, and I didn't get to go to a lot of symphonies or rock concerts. And so film music is really part of my historical musical background.
Who's your favorite film composer?
John Williams is. He's a wonderful composer. And has really, well, I like his airy quality and the use of his strings and the brass.
Do you know who Max Steiner is?
Mm-hmm.
Lisa, if you're into composing as you
Yes.
are, why did you not choose one of your own compositions for your town?
I haven't written anything for solo piano. I'm a little scared to do it because I'm a pianist. I have written something. The piece that comes closest would be something I wrote for string quartet, solo trumpet, and piano. And I just didn't have time to compose anything from my state pageant to here.
If you could compose something and have the instrumentation you wish, what would it be?
I'd love to compose for orchestra, but it's such a huge undertaking and it's very difficult to get played. And it's very important for me to hear orally while I'm composing. So unless I have a whole orchestra at my hands, I think it would be a very difficult task.
In one of your essays, you champion the cause of big brothers and big sisters. But in neighborhoods where these organizations are needed the most, they're conspicuous by their absence. What would you do about that if you were the director of Big Brothers and or Big Sisters?
I think you need to go into those communities and at the grassroots level and try to pull people out to be role models. And if there's a lack of people, we need to bring people in from other communities. Oftentimes, they try to match a little brother and a big brother from the same area, and just because time-wise, so that the big doesn't have to travel so far for the little. And I think in areas where there isn't a good source of good role models, we need to search even further, even if there's a lag time and traveling distance, and maybe have them meet on like less weekly.
How involved are you with this program?
I was part of the board that brought this program into my community. We became affiliated with the Big Brother, Big Sister program. We were formerly the LIFT program, lending individual friendship ties. We had 37 matches then and had about 37 on the waiting list. And we really felt that we needed to become affiliated with this program for more funding and for more volunteers.
How many years has this been going on?
Just this year we started.
Just this year. So
yes, about
you've
a
not
year.
seen any progress or any results?
Yes, we have. Since we had a bowl-a-thon that raised over $11,000 for the cause, and since we brought the program into our community, we've made 5 more matches.
But how are those matches going? Do you have any idea or any...
No, it's a little bit too early to tell.
Pretend we're a panel of wealthy people who have a lot of time on our hands. We agreed to allow you to come here this morning and sing the praises of Big Brothers and Big Sisters. How would you influence us, based upon your own experience, that we should participate?
Well, first I would explain to you the needs of our children. We see a lot of children in desperate situations, a lot of homeless children, a lot of children with drug problems, teen pregnancy. And I think
we can all relate to those feelings of loneliness, to those feelings of despair, of hurt, of rejection. I remember once, as a child, I was lost in the supermarket and didn't see my mother, and that feeling of terror, of abandonment. And so many children feel that every day. And you can do something to make a difference. And it doesn't take a lot of time, and it doesn't take any money, but you can influence someone's life in a positive way.
Of 72,000 young people that responded in a recent survey that USA Today conducted, 86% of them felt condoms should be available in high school. Do you support this thought?
No, I don't. I think it pushes forward the idea that our teens should be sexually involved. They're easily available in drugstores. Anyone can purchase them, so I don't think they should be available in our school systems.
Do you think our school system needs a complete revamping across the board?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
what differences would you like to see?
Well, the problem is that we have school on this side, or our youth rather, and school here, and the business community here. And there's a wall between the school and the business community. And the school is throwing over kids and saying, well, is this what you want? Is this what you want? In most cases, it's not. We need to crumble that wall. And we need to bring the businesses into the school community to help with resources, expertise, curriculum, role models, second career teachers, so that kids see the school to work transition, know what their options are, because if they never see it, they'll never choose it.
How do you feel about the curriculums in most schools?
I think they're lax. Our SET scores have gone down. The verbal scores have gone down. We have the worst, we're ranked the worst in math in all the industrialized countries. I think our curriculum really needs revamping, and we need to take the classroom out of the traditional setting into the business community, into the art community, and into hospitals and nursing homes to get kids interested and excited, because in most cases kids go to school today and they're bored.
Well, the corporate world coming into education, is there a concern that we might lose support for the arts if we're so concerned with math and science?
I don't think so, because not only are businesses adopting schools, but hospitals are, nursing homes are, government agencies are, theater groups are, and we want to get to the point where each school is adopted by more than one group, so that it has access to many resources.
Do you think rap music is detrimental
To what?
to, sending the wrong message and to the appreciation of good music?
No, I don't think so. Really, in the early ages, music was based on text, and text was the most important. And I'm really intrigued by the rhythms in rap music. I'm afraid that what those words are saying provide negative images to our youth. But on a whole, I'm very intrigued by rap music.
What have you lost, though, with the melodic part of it? Is there something that we're losing in spirituality? Or?
It's possible, but you can tie into many different things, like the melodic raising and lowering of the voice, and the timbre and changes in the voice. And well, I think that's really about it. Really, rhythmically, it's lax. We have 5, 1, 4, 5, 1. That's the most pop music today. But really, you can key into so many other facets of music. Timbral changes, rhythmic changes.
If you couldn't be a musician and involved in music in any way, where would you go with your life?
I'm a very creative person, and I think I would try to do something else in the arts. When I was in 6th grade, I told my mom I was going to dedicate my life to dance and become a dancer, and I was really quite serious about it. I'm very creative, and I don't know exactly what turn I would take, possibly interior design or dance, but I'm really determined to become a film scorer, even if that means that I'm going to be waiting tables for 20 years. I'm determined.
Could you compare the music of Jerry Goldsmith and John Williams?
I'm not as familiar with Jerry Goldsmith. I was really impressed with one of his recent film scores of Russia House, and that was the title, and it was obviously set in Russia, but the main character was a jazz musician who played soprano sax, so he intertwined kind of this Russian melodic heavy with this jazz, which was wonderful. And John Williams, it's always kind of this airy in space E.T. feeling, with really strongly supported underneath by brass.
Lisa, 100 years from now, what music do you think will represent our times and why?
My music. I hope my music.
What do you think the major obstacles are to peace in the Middle East?
Oh, there are several obstacles. I'm a little bit skeptical about the Middle East Peace Conference because each side has already said, well, Syria's already said, well, we want the Golan Heights, and Israel's already said, well, we're going to keep settling. And the major issues are going to be stumbling blocks because they've already said they won't compromise. And I think before those issues are resolved, they need to already have started a pattern of compromise on smaller issues.
Should there be a campaign finance plan to limit the influence of money on politics?
Yes, I'm afraid that special interest groups have too much say in our politicians' lives.
Do you think the government's doing enough about AIDS research?
No, I don't think so. I think the research is very slow. I had a piano teacher that died of AIDS, and so I got to see him wither away, and it's such a terrible human tragedy. And I wish that the research companies wouldn't work behind closed doors and work together to find a cure.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Thanks.
I think he was going to win. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is Miss Hawaii, Carolyn Sapp.
Hi, Carolyn. Good morning.
Good morning.
Do you think tourism is ruining your beautiful paradise?
I don't think it's ruining it, but we are searching for other alternatives. Hawaii is always known for the tourist industry, and that's very important to our industry because we're not an industrialized state. We are an island state, and we depend on this. We're also searching and exporting our knowledge in tourism, which is very important. We have great knowledge in this area. We're an expertise. We're leading the country in tourism, so we have this great knowledge. We're exporting it to Malaysia, Japan, where they're building $1 billion of resorts. So we're finding that we can export this knowledge also.
If you realize your ambition, how you implement international relations or change them?
How would I change them? For Hawaii, I think it's really important, along that same vein, is to look for other alternatives, which we're doing not only in tourism, but we're also looking in the science technology. We have an amazing amount of resources in science. We have Mauna Kea, which we have some of the best astronomy in the world, where people come from all nations, Japan, French, build their beautiful to explore the heavens. We also have science technology in OTEC. We have geothermal, which is very few states have that.
How were you accepted as a female spokesperson in Japan?
It was very difficult at first because Japan is very male-dominated, and it is a man's world, so I've had to learn how to do that. But over the last 4 years traveling there, I've never had a problem, and they've learned to respect and understand me as a woman, and also in my field, doing diplomatic work, working as an ambassador for the state and as an ambassador for America.
As Miss America, how will you convince parents to set guidelines for their children?
This is really important to me. I feel that educating your children knows no socioeconomic barriers. Looking at me, you would not realize that I come from a very multicultural family. Half of my family is Filipino. My grandparents are Filipino, my stepmother, half siblings, and I've learned that there's no barriers here. I've seen how my grandparents educated their 5 daughters and had strong values in educating and wanted to send them to school and made the sacrifice. So I can go into those ghettos. I can go and talk to Harlem if need be to stress the importance to families to wake up and say we need to build our future here on our children.
You had the opportunity to meet Dick Cheney. And if you had that opportunity again, what type of advice would you give him concerning our nuclear arsenals now that Russia has separated itself?
I think when we're dealing with Russia, we need to be very cautious, and I think it's very important that we just take a step back and very much evaluate the situation before we say, let's disband everything, let's dismantle. We need to see proof that everyone is doing that. We need to be very positive and lean forward and think forward in our movement of peace and global understanding. But we also need to be very cautious so we're not undermining them.
On your visit to Harlem, Carolyn, what would you say to young people there about television, their viewing habits?
See, that's very difficult because that becomes almost a parent's responsibility to be active in what their children are watching and to be active in maybe limiting what they're watching. But I would try to encourage them to maybe get out. Don't watch as much TV. Get into programs. I live in the ghettos of Honolulu, which seems unbelievable, but I don't find it a problem, and I'm definitely a minority. And sometimes, yes, there is a danger, but there's also activities out there that you can get into programs. You can get into special activities. I work with Special Olympics, and it's been wonderful. And there are programs that these youths can get involved in that can make a difference and help them motivate them for their future.
Speaking of the Special Olympics, what personal satisfaction have you received from working with that group?
Anyone that has ever seen an athlete finish a race, not necessarily win a race, but just finish a race, knows the personal satisfaction. And there's an ultimate high that comes from this. It's very exhilarating to me to see that and be a part of that over the last 4 years and build a communication between these athletes and myself where they know me by name, I know them by name. It is exciting, and the rewards are both ways. I give them what I can, and they give me back a hug and a smile.
Miss America is a very public personality. How will you deal with the fact that you sort of lose your privacy and you become this very outstanding young woman in the eyes of the world, and they expect a lot out of you? How will you deal with these expectations?
I think there's always a time for privacy and always a time to get away. Whether you have to go into a closet to have that privacy, I don't know. As Miss Hawaii, I've had to be on the public front. We travel a lot internationally, and that's helped me deal with the public. And I think you just have to realize that you've applied for this job, and if you want it, you have to be aware of the responsibilities that come with it, which means being public for a year plus. After your reign is over, you continue on in that vein. I guess in that sense, you're always Miss America.
Would it be a great disappointment to you if you were not crowned?
Oh, of course it would be a great disappointment. I'd have to say yes, because you've built up for this, you've trained, you've worked hard, you've studied, but I'd have to say more importantly, I've grown. I've learned to articulate better. I'm finishing school. I'm in this program. I am a student. I have a year and a half left, and I'm excited. And if not, I will go back to school, finish that, and go on and head Mufi out of his office and get into his place at International Relations.
How effective was the Just Say No program in your area?
It was really effective. The police got very involved in this program, which I think really helped. Our students have a great respect for Hawaii policemen, and it was exciting to see the policemen go in their regular clothes, not in uniform, and just speak to these kids, and they really related. A lot of our boys in police work come from the ghettos in Honolulu and in different islands, and so they can relate, or they might have been juvenile delinquents when they were young, so they have stories they can share. So they pulled in different sources that could really relate to all children of all races.
Now you're old enough to see some sort of difference from when you were in high school to today. Is there a drug change? Are we winning that war in Hawaii at all?
There is definitely an awareness, and I think this has helped. We have seen a definite decrease the last 4 years in our high school students who are taking drugs. And I think this is very encouraging for me to see, as I have very young brothers and sisters, and I am frightened for them. I'm very emotional about what type of school they're involved in. And so I'm always questioning the school. How is your drug programs? How is your drug problem? What is your violence problem?
Are they admitting there is one?
They do admit there is one, and they solve that. They counter that by bringing in people that will help solve these problems and deal with them, counselors.
What do you tell your brothers and sisters in this subject?
Oh, I'll tell them I'll kill them if they ever take it. No, I have very strong ties. I'm very emotional with my family, and I'm all excited that they'll be here tomorrow. And I just very much encourage them, and I think they've seen through me also that you can succeed without doing this, and it is a step backwards. And I think they're smart enough, and they realize on their own, and plus they have very good parents who instill in basic moral values, that they don't need this added to their life to cause problems. So they're very comfortable with talking about it, but it always surprises me about the young age that they're approached with these problems.
How do the arts figure into this very problematic world? How do you think the arts fit in?
Oh, we always have our left side and our right side of our brain, and I think we need to always be very balanced and appreciate that. I'm very musical, and I enjoy music, and things that are very artistic. I have artistic brothers and sisters, which I am not. I can't draw a straight line, but they can. And so I very much appreciate that, and I think we need that balance in life. We can't always be book learning. We also need to appreciate the arts.
Carolyn, with the news media capitalizing on negativity, or sensationalizing, with that in mind, how can you, as Miss America, influence the news media to keep you and your platforms in the public eye in a positive way?
First, you have to have very strong moral integrity, so there is no question about who you are and what you stand for. And that's the first thing for sensationalism, because usually there is a grain of truth that they capitalize on. And so I think that's the first step, and that you have to be very sure what you stand for. But I think if you're very firm and strong, I don't think answering no comment to the press will get you there. I think you will just have to say, no, there's no truth to that, and then go on with your topic and your platform.
Carolyn, we have about 30 seconds left. Your father's a minister.
Yes, he is. One of them.
One of them. What did he say the day you came home and said, guess what, Daddy? I'm going to be a hula dancer.
Oh, it's so much a part of Hawaiian history and our Hawaiian culture. I don't think there was ever a problem. He very much appreciates it. There's two different types of hula. There's the ancient modern hula, where there's the drums and it's very stiff, and it's the chanting where they're telling stories. And then there's the melodic hula, which we see very often now, which the Portuguese brought in with the ukuleles. And I've learned both of those, and he was very excited. He likes to imitate me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.
Come on, Jeff, make us look better than that. Well, we're over there taking notes.
You okay? We're speeding. What about it?
Good morning.
Good morning.
West Virginia, Leah, Lasker.
Good morning.
Good morning, Leah. Tell me, I'm noticing that you've had 8 years of all kinds of dance training. Why did you choose to do tap dance for your talent?
Well, I get most of my energy to dance from the audience. And I think whether an audience knows anything about dance or not, they get a kick out of tap. Tap is always fast, and there's rhythm, and the music is so fascinating. And I just think that the feedback I get from tap is what gives me the energy to go on. So I figured when I'm picking a piece for Miss America, I better pick one that's going to give me that energy, so I chose to do tap.
Have you wanted to be on stage since you were a child?
I have been a ham since I was in 12th grade. Before that, I was shy and backwards, and being on a stage was just the most horrible thing to me. But I found that inner talent, I suppose, when I was a senior in high school, and I have wanted to be on the stage ever since.
So why do you want to be a lawyer, and why hasn't Broadway called you?
Well, I've always wanted to be a lawyer. That's one thing that I knew from the time I was little. I wanted to be a child advocacy lawyer. Not necessarily because I think that we need to change too many things or change legislation, but I think that it's necessary that we see that things become enforced. I worked last summer for an attorney in my hometown, and I worked on a case that was involving the termination of parental rights. And I saw so many things that just snuck by that people didn't do that they should have done, so many procedural issues, and it really bothered me because these children were put in a situation where they were changed from one foster home to another. They were taken away from their parents and then placed back, and they were placed back with their parents ultimately, not because the parents were in the best situation, but because the State Department had done a poor job in doing their job. And it was just really hard for me to take that, so I want to become a child advocacy lawyer and see that those procedural aspects are enforced.
Is there a tie between our youth's needs for attention and recognition and the latchkey child?
I think there is a very strong connection there. Definitely these children have not much attention at home. They stay home, they watch television, they take care of themselves, and I think they see on television these role models who are addicted, who at one time were addicted to drugs. I don't necessarily want to undermine the importance of that, because there are a lot of children who are addicted to drugs or who are involved in a teen pregnancy, and they need to see they can overcome that. But what I want to do is be a positive role model, one who is successful without ever having experimented with those types of behaviors, to show these children that the attention can be received not because you have a problem,
such as a drug addiction or a teen pregnancy, but because you're successful without ever having experimented with that.
Should mothers who use illegal drugs during pregnancy be prosecuted?
Absolutely. To me, that's the most horrible thing. My platform is prenatal health care, and I don't think that many mothers know what happens to them, or actually to their unborn child, as a result of drug use during pregnancy. They know what happens to them, but the media doesn't focus much attention on what can happen, and there's so many children that die because the mother used drugs during the pregnancy, or are deformed, have birth defects for the rest of their lives because their mother was not aware or did not take enough interest. And I think that's just the most...
How severe should the punishment be?
There is a judge, I believe in California, that instead of penalizing the mother with a jail term, has made her take the Norplant implant so that she can have no more children, and has required her to go to drug therapy. And I think that's fascinating. It's very important to me that people are held accountable for their actions, not necessarily just punished on a across-the-board level, but something that's applicable to what they have done. And if you can keep her from having more children and at the same time counsel her, I think that'd be the best and the most effective type of punishment.
Leah, has television programming convinced you that the family structure as we once knew it is not necessarily the family structure that we should adhere to or look up to?
I think my experience from television, we see a lot of shows, the Cosby Family, where there's two working parents, and I think what the media has done is realize that there's a void here, that we don't have the family unit. We don't have the mother and the father and the 2.2 children. We have single parents, and situations where maybe the children aren't as exposed to both parents as they should be. And I think what the media has done is take family situations that are ideal to maybe encourage people, not necessarily to mirror society, but to create a new trend in society so that we do have the two parental unit or successful parents, two successful parents in the home.
What do you say to children that say that life isn't that way? It just isn't that way.
It can be that way. I think we've seen society had turned in a bad direction. Family wasn't important, and it should be. And the media is making that their issue. They're saying we want the family to be important, and I think that if the media will take the initiative, that will become the way it is, and we will see that become, the society will mirror the media as opposed to the media mirroring society.
Leah, how can you as Miss America influence the news media to keep you and your platforms in the public eye in a positive way?
Well, and this is my first platform, Prenatal Health Care. What I can do is use my ability to have an audience. As Miss America, I would have an audience, not necessarily one that I would be able to, I wouldn't have one that was guaranteed. I would have to earn their respect and earn the audience. But I would be able to speak to them, to educate the public on the evils of drug and alcohol abuse during pregnancy. As far as the role model issue, what I have done is create a 5-step program that works for me in goal setting, and I've been able to use that around West Virginia, and I would love to have a larger audience to show these children that what you have to do, first of all, is dream. Second of all, you have to figure out how you're going to get that dream and what you have to do, whether it's something so small as taking a typing class if you want to be a secretary, or going to law school if you want to be a lawyer. And then the third thing you have to do is find out what you don't want to do. If you want to be a dancer, you don't want to do things that's going to cause you to break your leg. I mean, there's just silly little things that you really don't think of, and you outline them if that's what you want to do. And the fifth thing is you have to consider how that's going to help you in society, how that is going to make the world a better place. And the fifth thing is that you have to be able to share that with other people, because if you can't share that with other people, then you're not strong enough in your commitment, and you're not willing to make a difference, and you need to rethink your dreams. So if I can combine those two programs as Miss America and have that audience, and I can keep that audience and make a difference.
Can you envision what kind of audiences you should be talking to?
Well, definitely, as far as prenatal health care, I should talk to pregnant women to discuss the evils of drugs and alcohol abuse. As far as legislation, I would need to lobby the legislatures across in the states or even Congress for some type of legislation that would guarantee prenatal health care. As for goal setting and role models, I would like to speak to youth groups or to school-age children.
Do you think we need a national health care service in the United States, even if it means raising taxes?
Absolutely. I think it's very important, especially children. They're our future, as simple as that sounds. And if we don't take the time now, our tax system is set up now that it's more lucrative to raise horses than to rear children, and to me, that's the sad statement of society. So what we need to do is create a system that will help these mothers get adequate health care as well as proper nutrition before and after the birth of their children.
Who's your favorite
Tell
role
us about the
model?
old movies you love to watch and why.
Oh, I love Gone with the Wind. I just love that era. I love the style of clothes. I love the femininity. I just think that's a fantastic movie. I also like To Kill a Mockingbird. That's sort of a legal one. It's one of those, we use it a lot in our ethics class, and I just think Gregory Peck was fantastic in that one.
Who's your role model?
I have a lot of role models. I guess right now at this point, Miss America would have to be a role model because that's my immediate goal is to be Miss America. My mother is a good role model. She's a single parent, and I have seen her overcome a lot of difficulties and remain a strong woman and a strong educator in our community. And so I just have a lot of different role models depending upon what stage my life is in at that time.
On another subject, the world today, it certainly is changing, and George Bush has recognized countries that, didn't exist for a long time. What is your feeling on this? How involved should our country be with these other situations around the world?
My first reaction is it's wonderful to see communism sort of die a slow death. I think it's important that we realize two things. First of all, communism isn't going to dissolve overnight, and we can't expect these people to just assimilate into a new culture. They're going to have to gradually ease into a free economy like ours. And second of all, I have a little bit of inhibition about it because it worries me. Right now, 6 countries have nuclear capabilities, and that's only 6 countries that we deal with as far as treaties are concerned. But if all these countries gain their independence, we have 18 countries that we deal with that will have nuclear capabilities, and those 18 countries we deal with as far as economic policies. And so it's going to be a whole new ball game. We're going to have a lot of different things to consider as far as our point of view. So I think it's fantastic, but at the same time, I think we need to be extremely cautious.
As a future lawyer, how would you react to Vice President Quayle's recent speech to the American bar?
I think he feels there's too many lawyers in our community. I mean, it is sad. We have, or not really sad, I guess it may be just overkill. We have 5% of the population and 70% of the lawyers. I mean, there's a lot. But I think that lawyers have a negative image, not necessarily because they do have a role. They are, a lot of them focus on the business aspect as opposed to the professional aspect. But when you think about it, every time when a lawyer's involved, there's a one side and another. And one side's going to go away a loser and one's not. So there you've got 50% that already aren't happy with that particular lawyer. And at the same time, the one who wins likely had to compromise a lot. So there are a lot of people with bad feelings about it. And another point is that people are down on lawyers because they say that they are these humongous settlements. And that's not the lawyer's fault, it's the jury's fault. So maybe we don't necessarily need to get rid of the lawyers, we just need to revamp the system.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.
Thank you, you too.
Good morning once again. I am Megan Welch, and I'm a junior from the University of Miami. I've always wanted to be a doctor, but from the time I was about 16, it seems destiny has been calling me toward the field of broadcast journalism. First, I was the youngest news anchor on CNN, and now I'm a host on an Emmy Award-winning kids show called No TV, which was recently awarded the best network kids show in the country by the National Association of Broadcasters. When I learned that 65% of what people know about health they learned on television, I decided to combine my two interests and become a medical broadcaster, a doctor who practices over the airwaves, and I could promote preventive health and wellness, which is my platform. I also enjoy promoting creative videos, and there are 2 that mean a lot to me. One helped raise $190,000 for Freedom Playground, a playground for all children, including physically challenged. The other video, which won an award, is about the history of DeLand, my hometown, and the Junior League uses it for educational purposes. I also enjoy my studies and working on a lot of projects. But there's some other things about me that you might find unusual, but hopefully you'll find them distinctive. I have the honor of hosting Lance Cornet during AIDS Awareness Week at the University of Miami. I maintain a 3.8 grade point average, and I'm on the president's list. I stumped the studio audience on To Tell the Truth. I've appeared in several issues of Teen Magazine. In addition to being awarded first runner-up, I was a preliminary swimsuit winner and was chosen to tour with the USO Troop in Florida. And finally, my father, my mother, and I are all full-time students. I've told you a little bit about myself, and hopefully you have my platform in front of you, which they accidentally lost, and I had to fax a copy to them. So I hope it's my platform, but we'll see as we go along. It is preventive health. But at this time, any questions?
Megan, I too am from Florida.
I read that in your bio.
Tell me how Hurricane Andrew impacted the area in which you were in.
Well, right before Hurricane Andrew hit, my family moved to the Fort Lauderdale area, which fortunately was not as badly affected as Florida City in that area. But University of Miami was postponed for about 2.5 weeks. And when I received the phone call that it was going to be postponed, I felt very fortunate not to be affected. And I said, well, is there anything that we can do at the university or in the city? And they said, well, we're all trying to get some students together to work and help out in any way they can. So I said, well, I'm there. And I helped organize a group called Operation Ibis. And we worked up until March of this year, and hopefully we will continue this year in doing so. But we went down every weekend. We formed little coalitions of students from the School of Engineering, sororities, fraternities who go down to areas such as the American Red Cross and help out with them, or whatever area. And each weekend we would do that. And then our popularity, or the news, spread to other schools. And we had schools as far north as Boston College come down over their spring break to help out. So it really spawned a lot of interest. And we're almost fully repaired, at least emotionally anyway.
Thinking you're only 19, you've been in several pageants, and I'm wondering what you have done to avoid becoming computerized or programmed type of contestant.
Well, I enjoy watching a lot of pageants, and I think today especially it's important that you're approachable and you're a real person, especially in the Miss America system, because you have a platform and your job is to go out into the communities and into the United States and speak on a one-to-one or in a group basis. And if you're not approachable and if you aren't a real person, then I don't think you can be effective in your platform, and I don't think it would do any justice for the Miss America program or whatever system you're in. So I think that's important, and not only in pageants, but in life, to be real.
Who's responsible for the problems that healthcare is having today?
Well, I don't want to point any fingers directly, but I think in our own way, each of us are responsible, whether it be the insurance companies, hospitals, and I think each of us as an individual and not bringing it to the government's attention sooner. But it is definitely a problem, and I'm glad that it's finally being addressed.
I got interested in your medical career. Have you made any applications to that school, or is that premature?
It's premature at this time. I'm thinking about possibly in the spring of this year pursuing it. But I definitely want to do medical broadcasting, and I'm not ruling out medical school because I think it's important to have NG for the credibility. But medical broadcasting. But if I am given the opportunity to join a network or a major television station as a medical broadcaster, I don't think it's necessary because you can rely on the doctors who are out there and the specialists who can give you the information and credibility that you need.
Well, this is research in general of the United States. You did have that MD degree. What would be your major health issue that you would push other than preventive medicine?
Oh, well, I'm crossing my fingers for Dr. Elders because she is a big advocate of preventive health, but also primary care. So if I didn't emphasize preventive health, it would be primary care. And I think that is important. And by doing so, we can, early detection and prevention, I think would be, I think that is what is the biggest problem with our healthcare system, is we're postponing our health until it's too late and we have to go to the emergency room or whatever. So that would be what I do.
What is your opinion then of holistic medicine?
Holistic? I'm not familiar with that. I have heard the term, but I'm not sure.
Holistic.
Holistic?
Well, you would seem to agree with preventive medicine and so forth and nutrition. Let me ask one more. Many people think that Marvin schools sort of rip off parents and they have no benefit to children at all. What is your opinion of that?
Well, in my bio, I hope you read that I was a modeling instructor at Management International, and I taught small children from about 5 to about the age of 12. And I myself am a graduate of Harvard. And I see them a little skeptical looking back, but it really did help me out a lot. I got a scholarship, fortunately, so I didn't have to put all the money into it. But I attended their school in about the 3rd or 4th grade, and I think it was an excellent start in poise and makeup and getting on the runway, and that's actually how I first got interested in pageants.
As a broadcast journalist, do you think the mass media is treating our politicians fairly? Do you think our mass media is treating our politicians fairly?
I think it's important for the media to act as a fourth state, and doing so watch over the three other branches of government. So I think some mediums are irresponsible, but I feel very strongly in the importance of media getting out there and exposing both the pros and cons to any issue involved in politics.
Do broadcasters make the news, or do they report it?
I certainly hope they report it. I know a lot of them try to make it, especially in South Florida. A lot of stations have gotten a lot of flack for inventing news or, of course, sensationalizing it and not reporting it. So I think if that would be my biggest complaint about broadcast journalism, it would be that, for sure.
You seem to have everything going for you at 19 with a TV show and college and so forth. How would becoming Miss Florida help you? You seem to have it already.
Well, it's a goal I've always had, and for my career aspirations, it is medicine, and preventive health is an excellent channel into my career choice. But I think as a well-rounded person, it has helped round me out, both in poise, talent, being up on everything and anything, and also, of course, making a name for myself, whether it be Miss Florida or perhaps the chance at Miss America.
Megan, has the media done anything for you?
Well, I have a certain respect for her, for, of course, addressing sexual harassment. I think she brought it to the forefront on a national level. So if there's any respect that I have for her, it would be that.
So you believe that her statements were true and his were false?
I did watch his hearing, and, you know, to be fair, I really don't remember what one said as opposed to the other, but I'm sure they each had their individual sides of the story.
Oh, you know this.
I did watch. I love this when CNN covers his hearings and trials.
You said a while ago that you're pro Joyce Lynn, I think you want to call her Job Law. She's being extremely criticized from the religious sector of the United States. She attacked the Catholic Church the other day and had to publicly apologize. Are her feelings too strongly in the opposite direction as far as the issue of an unborn child?
Well, perhaps when you're at that high of a level in decision making, it's tough when you make a stand. You're not going to make everyone happy. And I tend to side with her as far as distributing condoms and such in schools. I think she's being realistic, and I would love to pretend that abortion is not a problem and sex in younger children is not a problem. But she's real, and I have a lot of respect for that.
One is the state of Florida. I mean, they're allowing twice as many alligators to be caught this year as last year. Help me understand why animal rights activists are upset about that.
I'm not sure, but perhaps because they are an animal and we should respect them. But I grew up right alongside the St. Johns River, and there are a lot of them. But I'm not a strong animal activist, but I'm not sure.
Megan, many of the European nations are now urging President Clinton to have the United States be the leader in becoming more involved in the Bosnian crisis, and to the point of giving the Serbs military weapons and being more on the offensive than that. Do you think that we should do that?
I am not one for acting unilaterally. I think we should act as the United Nations and try to come up with some peace and not act defensively or offensively. And I don't know if it's still a realistic solution, but if we did, the United Nations, go in there for 2 years and perhaps try to maintain peace. That would be my solution, if it would be possible. I know. It's a sticky situation. I wish no one had the answer. I just hope they can find a thing. I did.
Did you lose anything from that?
I did and I didn't. I felt I reached a point in my life where I had done everything in high school that I'd like to, but of course I had friends that I had gone to preschool with on up. But I probably wouldn't have, but my father decided to go to law school. And he had reached a point in his life where he could afford to do so, and he was at a good place in life. So I went along with it, and my parents moved to Fort Lauderdale, and I got accepted for pre-college admission. So I don't regret it. As a matter of fact, I didn't even go back to law in my high school graduation, but I went back to prom. I didn't miss that. But I know, we had, for small town, we had a large high school, and I went to the one in the earlier year, and it was a lot of sitting and waiting. So I might regret that a little bit, looking back, not being able to tapping down and do everything.
Thank you.
I'm very happy talking with you. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow.
Myself. 75 days ago, I realized what it felt like to work toward and to achieve a goal that I was told for me could be impossible. Because I was 18 years old, I had not graduated from college, I was a minority, and on top of all of that, I had never competed in the Miss South Carolina pageant. But yet, I knew that through hard work and determination, I could do it. And 75 days ago, I was crowned Miss South Carolina. 7 years ago, I also had a goal in mind, but then my goal was to walk again. When I was diagnosed with AVM, which is an arteriovenous malformation, a rare brain disease, I underwent a 12-hour operation and was told that I could be blind and would never see, that I was paralyzed and would never walk again, that I would never live a normal childhood. But now I'm standing here in front of you today, and none of those things were true. I became an advocate for the homeless because I have an uncle who was living homeless on the streets of New York, because I have seen the impact homelessness can have on a family, because I have felt the pain. When I was told that one person could never make a difference, I knew that they were wrong. And that's what sparked my determination to start an organization called HERO, which stands for Homeless Education and Resource Organization. And we provide educational services for homeless people everywhere. It is estimated that through the media and public appearances, I have reached over 1 million people with my message. After educating and talking to the people of South Carolina, volunteering in homeless shelters, and also working in them, I've made a positive difference in my community. And hopefully, if I were crowned Miss America, I could do this on a national level. I've been told that we can never solve the homeless crisis in this country, but I've been told never before.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming from New York City, the homeless problem, of course, is right in our faces every day. And the worst element of it that I see, of course, is the mentally ill that are constantly being released from hospitals. How would you try and turn that problem around? What can be done about that?
Well, I think especially in South Carolina, the problem of deinstitutionalization is a very big problem because they go through a certain set of programs and then they're immediately released. But once they're released, they don't know what to do to get a job. A lot of times they don't have the family. And I think that what we'd have to do is get that whole system revamped in order to maybe have them counseling to where they can get jobs and they can get help with housing and things of that nature.
I don't understand your educational status at the moment. University of South Carolina, majoring in accounting and music, but also University of North Carolina. Can you explain that to me?
Oh, okay. I graduated from high school in '92. I went to University of North Carolina at Charlotte last year, and I was going to come home and go to summer school, but it was kind of expensive to go out of state for summer school, so I was going to come home to South Carolina, is where I'm from, to go to summer school. Once I won my state title, I didn't get to go there. So when we called the Miss America pageant, they said to put USC on my application, but I haven't gone there, but that's where I'm enrolled right now. But once I go back to school, I will be going to North Carolina. Kind of confusing, I guess.
What is the impact of the military budget cutbacks on the South Carolina economy overall?
The naval base closing, is that what you're talking about? I think that a lot of people are fearing losing their jobs, and I do. I think that that will be a big problem. Being from Columbia, I don't know many people in Charleston, but I do live in Greenville right now, which is near Spartanburg, where the BMW plant will be opening. Hopefully, those people who are working in the naval bases can get jobs there.
You have an interesting platform because you are addressing an issue, the current issue, homelessness. But homelessness is not an issue that stands alone. There are many other things related to it. Could you talk about some of those things?
Drug and alcohol abuse. My uncle, who was homeless, living on the streets of New York, had a tremendous drug and alcohol abuse problem. And it led to other problems. He lost his family, lost his job. And I think that we need to not just target homelessness, but target the causes and try to cure the causes, and maybe that it won't happen in the first place. Prevention may be the cure.
Why, you started a new organization. You're the founder and president of HERO. Why not work through a traditional organization like Habitat for Humanity?
Well, I thought that I would like to start an organization only because I wanted to have something that was my own, something that I could start from the ground up. And maybe, we've had counselors to work in it. We've gotten people from USC, which is a college nearby, who are physicians. And I think that that's what I wanted to target, that area. And because I live in Columbia, there's a big need for that. It's the capital city.
How many people are in your organization?
Working in the organization, there are about 25 members right now, and we just started a hotline, a 1-800 hotline in South Carolina.
Are they paid members?
No, they're all volunteer.
Excuse me, you said you formed a corporation. Did you form a 501c3? How do you account for all your finances and the contributions that are made?
We don't have contributions made. What it is we go into the shelters, and we go into the traditional housing and transitional housing and let them know that this service is available, and if they would like to utilize it, then that they can.
What specifically is the service? I may be having a little problem with it. What is it that you do specifically for them?
Okay, the service is that it's an educational service. We're not really advocating giving clothes and giving canned goods to homeless people. What we want to do is give them time management skills, money management skills, job training, things of that nature.
So do you actually teach them?
No, I don't, but I've gone out and gotten professionals in the Columbia area to do these seminars and perform those.
Have you seen any notable turnaround on the part of anybody who was homeless through HERO?
Yes, through HERO, I worked with a transitional housing in Columbia, and what we did were some of the students were mentors, and I was one of the mentors also. And I really noted a big change in just the attitudes. What a transitional housing is people who are living in shelters come to those transitional housing, and they're getting job training and job skills. So we worked with them. That's how we got our training, to find out how it goes on.
Who's your role model for the work you do?
Excuse me?
Who's your role model for the work you do?
Well, when I was in high school, I worked with an organization, and we went to places around South Carolina and did free food distributions. And the teacher, her name was Mrs. Helm, and she's been my role model for that. She really started me in this path, this direction.
What are the priorities in your life?
I think I put family first before everything, before education, before everything, because I have a big family. My mother has 12 brothers and sisters, and my dad has 5, and I only have one sister. So that, to me, is a strong bond, and I feel that's very sacred. I put it before everything.
South Carolina is one of the lowest per capita income states in the nation. Is satisfactory progress being made by the government to improve that situation?
Well, we just had a restructuring in our state government this past summer. Hopefully that will make some changes. I know that there are a lot of people. I know 51% of households in our state make $16,000 a year, and that's, you can hardly go to college off of $16,000 a year. So hopefully there will be some changes made with this, and we're also electing a new governor this year. So hopefully, I'm just hoping that we can get some things accomplished.
You You started out talking about adversity that you faced in your life and you've overcome. If you were selected as the Miss America for the next year, on next Saturday evening, how would you use your message to talk to the American youth about adversity?
Well, you're right, I have been through a lot. As Miss South Carolina, I've gone into elementary schools and middle schools, and the students seem to be very interested to know that you can have been through a lot and then be where you are. When I had my surgery, I was around middle school age, and I had to go to school with no hair on my head, and I had to suffer through the headaches and the embarrassment. So I know how those students feel who have to come to school with tattered clothes and who have to suffer through that embarrassment, and I think that they can see that through me, that you can go on to bigger and better things.
Do you have a favorite author?
Favorite author? Yes, I do have a favorite author, and I like J. Edgar Allan Poe. I love him. I love a poem called Telltale Heart. I really love that. Have you read that? Yeah. I love that.
What do you do with your free time when you're not working with your cause? You don't have any homework to do. What is it you do?
I like to sit and watch Oprah Winfrey. I love to watch Oprah Winfrey. I like to watch shows like that. And I like to spend time with my family and just be at home. I'm very much of a homebody, and being Miss South Carolina, I've really gotten to appreciate home because I haven't been home much. So.
What is the last book you read?
The last book I read was Miss America in Pursuit of the Crown. And that's honest, that's really the truth.
Did you find that helped you prepare for Atlantic City in any way?
Yeah, it was very interesting. You were in it. It was very interesting because I'd never been in the system before. I really didn't know how it worked. I got the book right after I was crowned, and I've been just finished reading it while I was in Philadelphia this past weekend. And I think it really has helped. It's brought some light on the subject and let me know that I'm not the only one with those fears, and it sort of made it feel like more of a personal.
This is a much different day and age for this program. In your eyes, is it still a relevant program, and why?
I think it is. I think because they've changed it more from a beauty pageant to a scholarship pageant. And I had an interview yesterday, and the man was really getting on me. He said, "We don't understand why there's swimsuits. We just don't understand that. It's just irrelevant." And I said, well, if you don't understand it, then you don't understand that it's only 15% of the total score. And you don't understand that it's promoting physical fitness. And people are always bearing down on that there's a swimsuit competition, but there's also talent, there's interview, there's evening gown. So it's not just swimsuit. And I would point out that you can't always focus on the negative, accentuate the positive sometimes.
What are the strengths that you would bring to the job of Miss America?
I think that Leanza Cornett and the Miss Americas before me have done a wonderful job, and I really admire them. But as Miss America, I would try to target those people who don't understand the program, and that not so much going around to the people who are praising it, but I would go to those people who are always knocking it down and try to show them that there is something positive in this, that we're not just...
Thank you.
Thank
you. Time's up. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hello.
Hi, I am Kara Martin. Someone once asked Ray Charles, how did you get so good at your music? He said, well, if you like something, you're going to keep doing it, and 9 times out of 10, you'll get better at it. My platform is math literacy, and I work as a math and science tutor. I see it as my job and my goal to make math fun, to make it seem easy, and to make it relevant to my students, so that they, like Ray Charles with his music, will want to keep doing it until they get better at it. And I began my math career at age 10 with a summer course in pre-algebra. My algebra teacher was my favorite teacher because she made math seem easy and she made it fun. I can remember an example that she used to describe variables in an equation using cats and dogs. She said that you should think of x's as cats and think of y's as dogs. You wouldn't add 3 cats to 4 dogs to get 7 cat dogs. Well, then you shouldn't add 3 x's to 4 y's to get 7 xy's. You have to add the cats and the dogs separately, just like you have to add the x's and the y's separately. And she influenced my attitudes towards math and towards myself, because I continued through calculus in junior high and high school, and I graduated at the age of 20 as the only physics major from Georgia Southern to achieve a 4.0 average. And I've accumulated over $30,000 in academic scholarships as a result of these accomplishments in math. But I know that there are other 10-year-olds out there who could also live up to the challenge of math and science, and I want to help them get the good start that I was given in math.
As someone who never did very well in math, what is the biggest obstacle to understanding mathematics and to not being afraid of it or feeling bad?
I think one of the things that's happening is the teachers who are teaching math are teaching math the way that you might teach like a history class or an English class. You're given like a list of facts or a list of terms, and you memorize these for the test. And then in history, you would do fine. But with math, it's problem solving. The problems that you get on the test are rarely, if ever, the same ones that you got for homework. So I think that you need to teach more individual thinking or independent thinking skills for math as opposed to just the memorization skills. I think that's the main problem.
So is that like creative thinking? Is that part of that?
Definitely creative thinking and learning how to apply the skills that you've learned to solving problems. Problem solving skills are really the main thing.
Why do you want to be Miss America?
Pardon me?
Why would you like to be Miss America?
I want to change people's lives. I think that's the same reason that I want to be a medical doctor, and it's why I love teaching so much. Because when I'm working with a student and they tell me, I wouldn't have been able to pass this class without your help, that makes me feel like I've done something. And I think that Miss America has that same impact when, all over the country, when she can touch someone and talk to someone, and they can say afterwards, I wouldn't be the same if I hadn't met you. That's a tremendous ability and a tremendous feeling to have, and I would like that very much.
I happen to think that far too many college graduates today can't really think. How would you make a contribution in that area?
That's one of the reasons why I chose math as my platform, because like I said, math is thinking, or it should be thinking. I think one of the misconceptions that people have about math is, and the reasons that they have problems learning math, is because they approach it like a memorization task. But when you show people that math is thinking, it's problem solving, and it's estimation skills. I think that's one way that you can improve math education, when teachers can evaluate their students by saying, okay, now estimate what you think your answer might be before you get it. Try to step back and look at the problem and say, now what's going to be a reasonable answer to this problem? That way you don't penalize the student for not getting the exact right answer, but at the same time you're rewarding them for trying to step back and take a big look at the picture. But that's why I've chosen math education, because it is problem-solving skills.
Do you think that women have more of a barrier to understanding math than men do, as some surveys have shown?
I don't think there is a physical difference between men and women as far as understanding math. I do think that there are societal pressures. There's been certain studies that will show that sometimes teachers, even female teachers, might not give the same encouragement, might not give as much critical feedback to females, and that might be one of the problems.
What do you think about right brain, left brain? There's that whole theory that some people are just more cut out for mathematics and sciences than others, and these talents,
Well, now, I would agree with that. I do think, for example, I think I have a natural ability in math. But I don't think that means only I and not other people who don't have a natural ability should be doing math. But that's a natural ability for me, and I see it in other students who might not recognize it in themselves. They have a natural ability, but it's been discouraged or shoved aside and said, well, you're female, you need to do this.
In wanting to be a medical doctor focusing on allergies, how do you feel about traditional Chinese herbal treatments and homeopathy versus, antihistamines and the barrage of drugs out there? I'm an allergy sufferer, especially in September. And so it's always this battle of should I do the Chinese or should I do the medicine,
Well, I would agree with you. I am very health conscious. In fact, I've done a lot of reading. I've tried herbal remedies for myself. I've taken golden seal and echinacea and different herbs to try to cure myself first before I go to the doctor. But I would agree with you. I think preventative medicine is the key, and taking responsibility for your health. Reading up on vitamins. I would agree with you. But obviously, I think the best plan though would be to use both. If you can cure yourself, or if a doctor can cure you using natural methods, that's preferable than to using drugs.
I'm intrigued by your interest in math and its importance in the country, and it's very refreshing to hear that. But how do you get the kids in inner cities to have that same appreciation of math that you have?
I think one thing that would be very effective is to use student tutorial programs. One of the things that we did at Georgia Southern, this was college students, but I think you can also apply it to a high school, where high school students in math would get extra credit, or they would get an extra point or 2 points on their exam for tutoring some of the freshmen. Because first of all, freshmen high school students idolize the seniors. And you don't have to be an A student to tutor. I think a lot of people have that misconception that, well, I'm not a good math student, why should I be tutoring? You learn by teaching. And I think that would be a wonderful way to build up the self-esteem of both the students who are doing the tutoring and those who are being tutored. Because by being a teacher, by the seniors being a teacher, they would see themselves as, I'm a role model, this person looks up to me, give them a sense of importance, improve their skills in math, and at the same time give the younger students, the freshmen, someone to look up to, like a buddy system. I think that would be a wonderful way to do that.
What do you think about the use of calculators in the classroom? We didn't have those when I was a kid. I was wondering, I guess people use them now?
Yes, in fact, they've just permitted calculators to be used on the SAT.
Isn't that like cheating?
I don't see it as cheating, because we're requiring more of our students. It's not like, well, they only have to add and subtract and multiply and divide. Now, that's taken for granted, but you have to take it one step further. You now have to be able to do calculus. You have to be able to go beyond what the calculator can do.
What social disadvantages are there to being the youngest among your peers and going through class, graduating at age 20?
I didn't experience any disadvantages. In fact, I think it was an advantage for me, because everyone looked at me like I was the prodigy. I was expected to do well. I was the youngest, therefore I must be smarter. I wouldn't be in this class. And I think I lived up to that expectation. And I seemed very mature for my age, and I think I was. For me, it wasn't a disadvantage, but I could see if you didn't look as mature as the rest of them that you might experience some disadvantages, but I didn't.
Where is Statesboro?
It's near Savannah. Do you know where Savannah, Georgia is? It's right on the coast. Georgia Southern University. We were national champions in football about 2 or 3 years ago.
Let me ask you a question on a different subject. What is your opinion of the quality of our governance in this country, and should or should we not limit terms of office?
I think that there should be term limit in office, because I think that there would be less motivation or less pork barreling, less reason for a person, a congresswoman or man, to pad legislation to be ensured that they would be reelected. I think that's one of the reasons that we have such a huge deficit, because individual congressmen and women looking out for their own political well-being and saying, well, I need to get this in for my community. And it costs money and it might be good, but I think that those small little pads all over the country is what has caused the tremendous debt that we have right now.
What newspapers do you read?
I have a free subscription to the Statesboro Herald. After I won Miss Georgia, they got me a free subscription, so I read the Statesboro Herald every day.
What do you like best about yourself?
I am a very fair-minded person. I don't judge anyone based on how they look, based on how they're dressed, and I expect and hope that people will treat me the same way, but I'm an egalitarian. I'm very fair.
How do you feel about AIDS education and condom distribution in schools, and at what age do you think that should begin?
I think AIDS education should begin in first grade, as soon as they start in school. And I think the condom distribution should begin when the students are at the age that they start engaging in sexual behavior.
What would you tell a first grader about AIDS? I'm just curious.
Well, you obviously wouldn't give them all of the information that you might give, say, a high school student, but I think you need to tell them what AIDS is. They might hear the word AIDS, and I think, or they might think, well, AIDS, isn't that a candy? I mean, there wasn't there's a type of candy named AIDS. Okay.
Time's up, so we have to stop.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
I promise you I'm the last contestant. I know Leanne probably wants to come back and interview for another year, but my name is Nancy Glisson, and I've had a lot of wonderful experiences the past 4 years, especially since I got involved with the Miss America program for the first time. It opened my world to entertainment. I worked at Opryland USA, where I was not only an entertainer, but I was an intern as well in the public relations department. And that really solidified my commitment to public relations. And from there, I wanted to further my research at the #1 agency in New York City, Ketchum Public Relations. And I worked with a not-for-profit group in the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, which was wonderful because that work experience complemented my personal experience because my brother suffers from cystic fibrosis. So it was very important to me. What I've wanted to centralize my time and my effort and my position is to help with adult daycare programs. My love for the elderly started at a very early age. I was born in a retirement community almost. There weren't a lot of kids in my area. So I kind of grew up kind of fast and had a lot of mentors to help me, like my 97-year-old best friend, Mr. White, who used to take me around the block and tell me about how he survived the Titanic sinking. And my best friend, Ruth, who was about 68 years old and always taught me how to dream and not to limit myself. And she's been fantastic and a wonderful mentor and kind of the grandparents that I never had. So I wanted to use this opportunity to have just an extraordinary difference and make an extraordinary difference as an advocate for adult daycare programs. Thank you.
Answer your first question.
Sure.
Since Americans are living longer, do you think the retirement age should be raised, and should there even be a mandatory retirement age?
Actually, that's interesting. I would suggest yes, it would be raised in the respect of Social Security benefits, because that would leave a wealth of more money and more monetary and financial foundation for a lot of the programs that we have. Yet, so many people are working longer too. My mother's over 65 years old, and she's been working as a real estate person just as, after her homemaker, and raising children. But I definitely think that it could be raised. But again, people are living longer, they're working longer, and if working makes them happy, why not?
May I ask you a question about your agency? Would you like to hazard a guess as to what is the most difficult obstacle in an agency-client relationship?
I'm sorry, did you ask that question? Or you
Would you
just
like
asked
to
me?
hazard a guess as to which is the most difficult obstacle in an agency-client relationship? Bad agency-client relationship.
Right. Probably the most difficult thing is trying to balance what the client wants in respect to what an agency is, making that negotiations process. We dealt with that a lot. I worked with Evian Waters of France as one of the projects. It was really interesting because they have their set structure of what they've done for years and years and years. And we wanted to bring in a totally different idea, a creative, innovative, progressive campaign. And it took a lot of negotiation. Next of selling more Evian wood than they have in a long time.
How far along are you with the MBA program?
Actually, I'm not far along. It says that I want to pursue my MBA, so I want to plan to attend Purdue University. I think it's a wonderful university. Most of my professors at Virginia Tech were Purdue graduates, so they kind of conned me into getting involved with Purdue. But I'd like to focus on a business administration with a public relations specialization, and that's what they have at Purdue, and unfortunately they don't offer that in the state of Virginia.
In the state of Virginia,
Yes.
however, you have some military installations, and you have a senator who's been very outspoken on gays in the military. If you you as Miss America were asked the question about the appropriateness of gays in the military, what would be your response to the American people?
I think, first of all, I really don't like to put hasty generalizations, and I think a lot of people have been putting a lot of hasty generalizations on that. Being from Virginia Tech, we offer, like the military, we offer in the ROTC program, it's open to both genders, because I know VMI had a problem with that earlier this year, and they have to make a decision, and the Supreme Court is stipulating that right now. With gays in the military, I don't see color, and I don't see that personal bias or homosexuality as a problem. I think there's been homosexuality in the military for years, and I think that the Don't Ask, Don't Tell is a wonderful way that you can keep your identification and you can keep your identity. But I think it's more of a safety precaution because a lot of people are getting hurt, and a lot of men have been killed because they're homosexual, and they find that out in the military. I think more than anything, I don't want to ever hesitate for anyone to share how they feel and to not be ashamed of how they feel. But unfortunately, safety reasons, I think the Don't Ask, Don't Tell is really a good idea.
But you wouldn't want to set policy based on the likelihood that someone is going to engage in a violent crime. You would take precautions to prevent
Absolutely, and
crime,
that's where I think a lot of surveillance would be helpful. And I think if you have a commander that is very responsible and is very accountable, that he would be it would be a wonderful opportunity for them to maintain that anonymity.
As a public relations person, I think I worked for the same agency about 20 years ago.
Great.
When it was called Dudley Anderson and Young.
It might have been.
Anyway, as a public relations person, are there clients that you would turn away because you disagreed with their philosophy, for instance, their politics or their moral outlook?
Or their product or service or something like that. Actually, there would be. I had the opportunity to work for R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company, and that's very lucrative in the state of North Carolina as well as Virginia. But what I was really concerned about was I don't condone smoking, and my mom smoked for 35 years, and it just is something that I don't approve of. So that would be a company that I would not want to advocate tobacco products for.
Do you agree with the Supreme Court decision related to VMI?
Actually, the Supreme Court decision that I would favor, because Virginia Tech, I think, was very progressive in the 70s to take that stand and to admit women as well. I don't think that any corporation or any institution, college or university that receives public funding should ever discriminate against any of their students. So that's what I believe in, that they should not discriminate, especially when they're using public funds. If VMI decides that they can have enough corporate contributions and donors or contributors in such a way to make a school that would be conducive to a male setting, to make it a female setting, that would be great. But I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to have to go private.
There was another controversy in Virginia having to do with sexual harassment and the relationship between professors and students at the University of Virginia, I believe.
That's right.
What would you say if you were asked about the prevalence of sexual harassment in American society and corporations and institutions?
Yeah, I would ask that question too about have I ever had a sexual harassment experience, and I haven't. And I think the reason why I haven't was because I think you have to, as men and women in a workforce, you have to set that precedent to your employer and to your coworkers. If you tell them and if you give them a direct communication and they know exactly what is sexual harassment, I think if you define that, that's what I think is important. I define it. I make it very obvious and direct that when I'm working with someone, what is the appropriate behavior. And I don't sway from that at all.
What is
appropriate behavior?
Yeah, what is your definition? Right.
For instance, anything that makes me feel uncomfortable, anything that makes me feel a little too vulnerable. Uncomfortable is a better word that I think is fitting. In the workforce, I haven't really felt uncomfortable because I basically, lay down the law, and I don't mind people opening doors for me, and I think that's wonderful, and I don't consider that sexual harassment. But something that may be asking me for a date, knowing full well that I'm working with them and we're in a business relationship, I don't favor that.
There's a real problem with senior citizen abuse at the hands of their own children.
Right.
How serious is that problem, and would the adult daycare program help in alleviating that in some way?
Actually, it does. I've worked with Virginia Cooperative Extension Service. You might have had extension services across the United States. And I'm a referral agent to them. So, for instance, if I go to an appearance and I speak to a hospital and to their administration, I talk to them about what adult daycare is, and especially like there was a place called Grundy, Virginia, that I was able to talk with them about. They were doing renovations, and I told them about the program, and they said, yes, we'd love to institute this. So what I've been doing is I've been helping by sending them information, helping them to get grants and endowments to keep their adult daycare center going, as well as what a regulation sort of commitment. For instance, the Agency on Aging in the state of Virginia, they sporadically and without any warning at all will go to any adult daycare center, and they will check up on the patients, they'll check up on the quality of care that's given there, and I think those kind of little updates are wonderful, and that will keep you in line. We haven't had any problems in the state of Virginia, and I've been very proud of that because I've been really up on the adults in the state. So.
What can be done to make life more fun for old people who are in daycare centers?
There've been lots of things that I have been able to work with as adults. I think it's really unfortunate because, again, I didn't know my grandparents, and I've always wanted that mentorship, and that's something that's very, very important to me. What adults love is they love touch. You know, they love to be held. They love children. Even researchers have proven that their eyes open up, they dilate more when they see children, they see animals. What I've worked with is intergenerational programs, like at the Veterans Hospital in Roanoke. They love children. I mean, they'll get in a circle, and the children will be inside, and they'll sing Old MacDonald Had a Farm, and the little children don't know what a giraffe is. They don't know what a cow is, but they hold the little piece in their hands, the older people do, and the children go around and say, is this a cow? Is this a cow? You know? And it's a really wonderful experience because they give each other a hug, and then they learn what the cow is, and the adults feel like they're helping teach. And I think that's really important. They also are doing it with AIDS patients and helping, especially terminally ill people, with maybe helping each other live longer and survive longer. Now they have a best friend. This older, like 92-year-old lady in Florida has a best friend who's 36 who's dying of AIDS, and they have prolonged both of their deaths dramatically because of that mentorship.
What characteristic about Virginia should more people know about?
I think the tourism industry is probably the most important thing I see in Virginia. I live right next door to Busch Gardens and Colonial Williamsburg, the colonial capital of the world, and Williamsburg is one of the most scenic places to be, but Virginia also offers the beautiful beaches. It offers our historical background. We had over 9 presidents born there. There's so many wonderful things to see. So I think for a vacation, come to Virginia. I'll make sure that you get a free pass to Busch Gardens and enjoy it with your kids.
Which of the 9 presidents do you admire most?
Probably the first would be George Washington, because he's just, and George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, I'm going to tie. They both helped our democracy dramatically, and especially in Williamsburg, because you almost walk their path every day when we go to Colonial Williamsburg, going down Duke of Gloucester Street. So they've done a lot to help stabilize our democracy. So I definitely think they're wonderful. And Thomas Jefferson helped with the founding of the University of Virginia.
Who do you think made the most wonderful contribution to your state?
To my state, probably George Washington, yes.
What change would you make in the Miss America pageant if you had the opportunity?
Actually, what I think would be really interesting is that there have been so many changes right now that we're not maybe promoting it as much as I think we should. I love promoting and I love advocating. And what I'd like to see done is almost have a uniform publicity program for the Miss America pageant. A lot of local pageants don't publicize as much, or maybe they don't know how, if you've ever worked with a local pageant.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Well, anyway, maybe you'll find out some more later.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Family. One of them happened to be my father, our breadwinner. 3 years ago, I skipped my senior year of high school and started college with my father. Only my dad started law school, so naturally we had to trim our budget quite a bit. And because of that, I decided that I was going to do my best to pay my own way through school. And I have so far. I work hard to maintain a 3.9 GPA, so I do receive academic scholarships. But I've received the most support from the Miss America program. In the 2 years that I've participated, I've not only grown personally, but I've earned over $30,000 in scholarship money. And that's something that my family and I will always remember. I'm using that scholarship money toward a degree in broadcast journalism, but I've already had some pretty lucky opportunities in that field. At 16, I was the youngest news anchor on CNN, and because of that, I stumped the studio audience on NBC to tell the truth because they didn't believe I was the youngest news anchor. Ironically, they guessed I was the Rose Bowl queen. Currently, though, I host the Emmy Award-winning kids show called No TV, which is based out of a local NBC affiliate. But I have to tell you, the reward for the kids show is not salary. It's the creative hands-on connection to the field and the experiences I've had with the children. The kids show is what got me involved in the national child safety movement and my platform, the prevention of predictable childhood injuries, the things we call accidents. I work for child safety as a board member and spokesperson for Safety Village with the health department and directly with the children through my Kids Safe program. But since becoming Miss Florida 2 months ago, the opportunities to promote child safety have grown tremendously. I've done public service announcements, hosted safety events, and even served as a child safety correspondent on television. But one can only imagine what Miss America could do. I believe my 2 minutes are about up, so it's time. I'd love to answer any questions you have for me.
Hi, Megan. I admire your platform. It's a very important one. Of course, with a platform like this, keeping kids safe from accidents, you really have to know what you're talking about when you give instructions. Have you taken any formalized Red Cross training or non-Red Cross training in health and safety for children?
Well, the safety village that I'm spokesperson for is based out of the Orange County Sheriff's Department. So I've spoken in great length with sheriff's deputies, firefighters. The board consists of firefighters, police officers, sheriff's officers, and safety officials and concerned community organizations.
So you would have picked up some information?
Absolutely.
Well, for example, when a young child's drowning in an open body of water, what would be the first thing you would do?
Well, my platform involves preventing such occurrences from happening, and in Florida's ranked #1 in the nation in called drowning, so that's something. About a month ago, we had 7 drownings in 1 week, and the thing to prevent that is child observation. We've got to have the parents there or caregivers to guard and to guide our children, and it's important that we stress to parents and children. That's what I do when I go into the schools and libraries, is that you can't go swimming by yourself. You can't trust yourself because I'm an accomplished swimmer, so to speak, but you can't rely on that. And children do know better, but I think the biggest risk is with the small children. When a ball falls in the pool, and that's when it relies on the parent to go in and to be sure that the child is there, because it only takes 2 minutes to turn your head and the child's gone.
As one who's interested in news, Megan, how do you feel about our political system in this country? Should we bulldoze it, start all over again, add another party, what?
Well, I think the media does tend to manipulate it quite a bit, and we're seeing a lot of partisan head fighting right now, and that's unfortunate. Perhaps another party would be the answer. It's happened in the past. But I think we all just have to start believing in what we feel strongly this country needs and voice our opinions to our legislators or what have you.
And what's your opinion?
What's my opinion about the government?
About our political system? Good, bad, indifferent, what?
I think it's bad, and I'll draw on a personal experience. My dad's best friend is a former congressman, and he served 2 terms, and he's an extremely honest person, and he decided not to run for re-election because he couldn't stand to be manipulated by the political action committees, and he didn't feel that he was making the difference that he wanted to be making. And I think that's where our government is failing right now, with even the crime bill and the NRA, with the strength that they have in the opposing that. I'm so happy to see that Clinton is going to be signing that bill today.
I have a 9 and a 6-year-old, and every time they go for a bike ride, I have to tell them to put on their helmet. How would you convince my 9-year-old in the classroom that it's important for her to wear her helmet so the mother doesn't nag at her one more time?
Well, it's important that Arnold Schwarzenegger, even the Clintons, when they were at Martha's Vineyard, they did a little photo op with their bicycle helmets and their knee and elbow pads on. And it's important that we have role models after doing it. So those who don't want to start setting the trends and be stylish, so to speak, that's what I try to prevent. I have this bicycle helmet that I bring in that's black and it's got these flames on it, and it always goes over really well. And I have people come up and try it on and realize that it's lightweight, that it's stylish. You can decorate them yourself with stickers, and I use that tactic, and it's worked. It's worked. We went in Florida, only 1% of children were using bicycle helmets, and now we're up into the 30% time. So we are seeing success.
You're a remarkably self-possessed young woman. What terrifies you? What makes you scream at night?
I'm afraid of
snakes, spiders, the dark, what?
Actually, the dark and being alone. Like, I don't like to stay in the house by myself, to be honest.
Megan, what is your favorite children's television program that's currently running besides Sesame Street?
Besides Sesame Street, that's educational?
Whatever.
I like Saved by the Bell because it does. Because it's trending, you get to see the styles and it gets captures the children's attention, but there's always a message there.
Have you seen Roundhouse?
No, I haven't. I should have.
How much did your dress cost?
I bought this secondhand, and I paid $300.
Do you know how much your wardrobe
I haven't added it all up, but didn't have to pay a cent myself. I have a very wonderful board.
Is MTV, should it be regulated? It seems to me it's doing a lot of damage with young people.
I don't watch MTV, but I know that we need to look at it as music television. And they do try to be off the wall, and I do know that friends of mine that have watched it, they tend to get some dang ideas from it. And, you know, there's nothing we can do about it. We live in a free country. We've got to let them do as they may, and hopefully just persuade teenagers and grown-ups that they watch it alike to refrain from watching it or to have a sense of what it's all about.
What does it say about the news today if a 16-year-old is able to act as a commentator or an MC?
Well, I think it says that anything is possible, and with me, I'm fortunate to come across more mature on camera, and that helped me out a great deal. But I think as long as you are who you are and you're good at what you do, then an age or your sex, class, gender should not make a difference.
Were you resented? Did you feel as if you went over your head?
No, I didn't. They were very sympathetic to the fact that I was 16 when I started working with a local CNN affiliate. They bleeped out the Hollywood report on headline news 6 minutes before each half hour, an hour, and I would do the local edition. And the local newspaper would fax in the stories, and I'd have to compile it. But it's really just, as I'm sure you might well know, once you get the pace down, and it's just a rhythm, then you get used to it.
Making the immigration difficulties of Florida are almost overwhelming. Defend the position that you would give on television concerning limiting or not limiting immigration.
I think we have immigration quotas, and we need to start enforcing them, but at the same time, we need to be sympathetic to other countries who are in desperation right now. And I think, as far as the United States goes, we do have, especially with Cuba and Haiti, because they're so close to the coast of Florida especially, we do have interest in them, and we've got to show our humanitarian side, but I think we should do that through the United Nations.
Because your buddies were out there in the hall. You are mature.
Thank you.
But you wouldn't go out, would you say, I have finished the interview, or what would you say if your best friend? How would you react? Let us see a little bit of that side of the camera.
I will probably do it. Over the field. For sure. I'm a very conservative, reserved person, but I do know how to have fun. And I'm very human, very emotional.
I now lost a child in a swimming pool in my backyard, and I had to give her CPR. She was blue in the face, and I really had no clue on what to do. Is CPR different for children as it is for, different than it is for adults?
Well, you do have to be more careful with the child. It's something, as I'm sure you know, you've got to dial 911 before you start doing CPR. Most people aren't even certified for CPR, but it is something that you've got to be careful with, and a child is actually more fragile.
Is that an issue as far as more people need to know CPR? I mean, here
absolutely. I think they should implement. I was certified in high school for CPR through my health education class, and it's something that I think we should implement.
If that child's airway was blocked because of some object, what would be the first thing you do?
On the maneuver, I almost choked to death. I was at actually an American Red Cross picnic, and it was at a Springs, and we had fried chicken, and I was gulping it down quickly so I could get to the Springs to swim, and I got a piece of chicken lodged in my throat, and we were all sitting around. It was very noisy, and no one could hear, and I just got this numb sensation, and I finally started pushing on my mom, and she looked and she jumped up and gave me the Heimlich maneuver. It's scary, very scary.
How many states have heartbeat laws?
49, I believe. 48 or 49.
What's the state of those?
Tennessee, I believe.
You're concerned about children not taking on responsibility. Where does the blame lie, and what's the solution?
I don't like to put blame on anybody, and I think the reason that the United States is number one in the world in childhood injuries is for the first reason because we're the number one industrialized country of the world, but yet we're also more technologically advanced. And so children are going out there into the world having a lot more of things to worry about. And then the second reason is our family unit, as we all know, is not as strong. The traditional family unit no longer exists. And so the quality time that you have with your child
isn't going to be spent more than likely with the child, with child safety. It's going to be taking to the movies and having fun. And we've got to all work together and make everyone realize that they have an obligation to guard and to guide our children.
That's elevated?
I'm a big advocate of that, even as an aspiring broadcast journalist. I think that parents really should regulate what their children watch.
Megan, I'd like to follow up on Malcolm's question. You have a platform, and you must lead the world in preventable injuries and fatalities. Where did you get that statement? What source? And then, I really have a problem with who collects the information on the other countries of the world to do any kind of comparison.
Well, there's the National Safe Kids Coalition that I've been fortunate to collaborate with in Washington, D.C., and they provide me with all these statistics. And they have hired people who go out and throughout the world and do this. It's done through Cornish reports. And thank you very much, Megan. Thank you. No time. See you tonight.